class. For those that are online, we are excited to be presenting today on Checkbook Control for the experienced investor. I don't have that. All right, so disclaimer, we are not we serve as a custodian, so we're not financial advisors or CPAs or attorneys, so don't come to us for legal advice because we will not be able to provide that to you. We always recommend that you seek professional help when it comes to these types of investments and knowing the rules and the regulatory systems for the IRS. So what is a self-directed IRA? Self-directed IRA is just a marketing term. An IRA is an IRA, an individual retirement account where you are able to self-direct your investments, unlike when you're investing in traditional assets like stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. So what are the benefits of self-direction? Obviously the same as always, the tax benefits, the true diversification of being able to invest in a bunch of different asset classes to ensure that you're going to get the maximum return for your investments, and the ability to invest in what you know best. 9 times out of 10, when people are invested in the stock market, they don't even know what they're invested in. So they always say invest in what you know best because you probably know that market a little bit better than the stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. So the concept of the Checkbook Control LLC is creating an LLC for the IRA with the IRA as a 100% member and you 100% manager of that LLC. Your IRA would technically be invested into that LLC company. So we would wire them, you would go to a bank, open a business checking account, and then we would wire the money from your IRA to your LLC banking account that you've created, where you would then have a debit card and direct access to your funds to be able to utilize that for any investments or expenses for your investments. And you don't have to wait the processing time for new views. So instead of waiting that 24 to 48 hours of having us, process your investment, send it through our compliance and review everything for you, it'll be you being able to make investments on a dime. The only difference is we will not be there to make sure that you are compliant with the IRS. So it's very important that you know the rules and regulations of the self-directed IRA, prohibited transactions, etc. All right, so when you're setting it up, the IRA is going to be the sole member of the LLC. The IRA is the shareholder, and then you are 100% manager of that LLC. So of course, the same restrictions apply whenever you are investing with an LLC. Prohibited transactions are still prohibited transactions, and prohibited parties are still prohibited parties. So you have to make sure that you know what is a prohibited transaction and what is a prohibited party. I did go ahead and provide a worksheet on prohibited transactions and prohibited parties. You can access those for those of you online. Refresh your page if you don't see them, but they should be on the add page where you joined the class today, and you'll be able to print those out or save them to your computer. And investment restrictions are all the same. With the IRA, you're not able to invest in life insurance or collectibles. Everything else is allowed. So these are the prohibited parties, as we mentioned. Any of your ascending or descending family members, along with any of their spouses, would be considered disqualified. Anyone that you're in business with at 5% or more, or any fiduciary, CPA, or tax advisor is also considered a prohibited party. So for the process, you would meet with a financial advisor, CPA, or attorney. You would be able to either go online and on SunBiz, or you can create one with a CPA, financial advisor, or attorney to make sure that it's set up the way that it needs to be. I did go ahead and provide a worksheet with the way that you would want that checkbook control to be set up to be compliant with the IRS. So as we mentioned, you would establish your self-directed IRA. If you don't already have one, you would then create the LLC. Once the LLC is created, you will receive operating agreement or subscription documents for that LLC from the attorney or advisor that you work with to establish that type of account. And then from there, you would be able to go to a bank and open a business checking account at any bank of your choice. And then we would wire the money from your IRA to that LLC bank account where you would have a debit card and direct access to your funds to be able to utilize it for investment purchases. Now, remember, since you are going to be set up at a bank, we won't have a view of that account. So we won't be able to see if the transactions that you're doing are compliant with the IRS. We won't be able to see the fair market value of that account, and we won't be the record keeper of that account. So if you were to ever be audited by the IRS, it would be your responsibility to prove to them that everything used and done inside of that account is not a prohibited transaction. And then once a year, you will have to update the fair market value of that account and all the assets inside of it in your new view portal. So the benefits, it helps investments with multiple funds. So if you need quick access to your funds where you don't want to wait the 24 to 48 hour processing time, this would be a good opportunity for you to invest in. That way you can have direct access to your funds, as we mentioned. It helps on certain investment strategies, so real estate investing, people that need expenses paid for their investment and they need to be able to pay for that, say at a Home Depot, or be able to pay a non-disqualified party to be able to pick up that for you or do the work. You would be able to just pay for it right with that debit card or checkbook that you have. You can 1099 contract people and pay that as well right out of the checkbook. So, and no third-party oversight. So, as we mentioned, you need to make sure that you know what you're getting into and all the rules and regulations for the checkbook control, because the IRS, on the IRS website, they tell you they don't tell you what you can do, right? They only tell you what you can't do. So make sure you're cautious and you know what you can and can't do with the account. So does this make sense for me? So this is it's not for casual investors. As we mentioned, you need to know all the rules and regulations and have a working knowledge of prohibited transactions and rules, who's a disqualified party, the plan asset regulations, the rules regarding unrelated business income and unrelated debt finance income, and more. So the Checkbook Control started in 1996. It's been established and approved by the IRS since the Swanson versus Commissioner case in 1996, where Swanson versus Commissioner, he had established an LLC or Checkbook Control, and he was doing prohibited parties in it, or prohibited transactions in it. You would be able to look this up. Just search Swanson and Commissioner and you can read exactly what had happened, but the IRS at that point stated that it would be allowed inside of the IRA. So with the Limited Liability Company, you will have also the IRA protection from being invested into the IRA, as well as the limited liability protection of the LLC. So that would provide double protection for your investments. So this is an advanced level strategy. As we mentioned, you need to know everything about what you can and can't do with the IRA to make sure that you are compliant with the IRS. So you are in the driver's seat. So when you're driving and the excuse, going 80 miles in a 40 and the excuse of you not knowing the speed limit is not an excuse. You need to know what you're doing and when you're in that driver's seat and make sure that you know how to drive that vehicle. So you manage the investment. It's going to be 100% managed by you. Doing your due diligence is important. I also have a worksheet on due diligence. If you're interested in that, I can send that out to you. But basically just making sure you know what you're getting into when it comes to making all of your investment decisions. Or, of course, meeting with a CPA, financial advisor, or attorney to review these investments for you. So you need to know UBIT and UDFI. Anyone in here know what that means?
UBIT's unrelated business income, and your UDFI is you get financing through your IRA.
Correct. So UBIT is a tax that your self-directed IRA may occur when your IRA receives unrelated business taxable income due to its ownership in a business that is not taxed as a C corporation. It earns unrelated debt finance income from revenue like rent, proceeds from the sale of an investment property that has outstanding debt. So anytime that you buy a property inside of the IRA, you will be subject to the unrelated debt income tax that comes with leveraging a investment property. So the following are considered UBIT in an IRA. If your self-directed IRA invests in a business and receives pre-tax profit instead of post-tax profits or dividends, income made by a business your IRA actually owns and operates, and income your IRA receives from assets held within a business operation or entity, such as partnership or an IRA LLC that did not pay business tax on the profit before distributing income to the other to retirement account. And another court case that I wanted to review with you guys that happened November 18th in 2021, McNulty case versus Commissioner, where they created an LLC and invested into gold coins. And since they were invested into the gold coins with the LLC, they decided to take the gold coins and instead of setting them up at a depository or something where a third-party custodian to hold those golds, they took the gold into their personal name. They held it in their own personal property, and at that rate, it was undermining the fiduciary requirements of Section 408 as unfettered control. So she is free to use them as she sees fit, and the value of the coins were includable in her gross income because she took them as a personal distribution into her personal name. So she didn't know, based off research, that she did engage with a prohibited transaction, but the courts were unsympathetic. The IRA custodian did their research on their website, and the commissioner argued that the website is merely an advertisement of products and services. A reasonable person would recognize it as such. It does not constitute as professional advice. You cannot rely on an advisor who participates in structuring the transaction, i.e. the promoter. So again, this is why it's super important to meet with a CPA financial advisor, somebody that actually knows the rules and the regulations of the Checkbook Control or the IRS rules and regulations, just to make sure that you are being compliant with the IRS. So 7 ways to reduce or avoid UBIT. So don't allow your IRA to use leverage to fund your real estate investment. Of course, you can fund the deal 100% out of the IRA, and then you wouldn't have used any debt to purchase the property. So at that point, you wouldn't be responsible for any debt from that property. UBIT only applies to the debt leverage percentage of net profit of an asset. So only the net profit of the asset you would be responsible for paying that tax on. Partnering your IRA funds with cash or another investor instead of using leverage. So you are able to partner into different types of investments instead of taking a hard money loan or a non-recourse loan from the bank. You can partner with other people, and you can even partner with disqualified parties into a joint venture. Use a solo 401k. So if you are a business owner with no common law employees, you would be eligible for the solo 401k. And at that rate, even if you took a non-recourse loan, you would be exempt from any UDFI tax. So use banked losses from previous years to offset the profits in your current year. Pay down leverage quickly with profits from other IRA investments. And pay off debt leverage a full 12 months prior to the sale of an IRA-owned property to avoid UBIT on sale of your profits. So here's what to do next. If you do not have an account set up with us, or you're looking to set up Checkbook Control, you can scan this QR code here. We'll be happy to get you on the phone, talk to you. We have a list of CPAs and financial advisors that we can advise you, or we've worked with in the past, that you would be able to reach out with if you are interested in working with them, and they will be able to help you establish the LLC. And then it's as easy as filling out a purchase authorization form, and then within 24 hours of receiving your operating agreement of that LLC and you setting up that bank account, we can go ahead and wire out the funds for that. Which at that rate, then you would have the checkbook and the debit card and direct access to your funds to be able to utilize that for any investment purchase of your choice. So the benefits, some more benefits of the checkbook control is that it helps investments with multiple funds. So maybe you're making an investment that has a lot of moving parts and you need to cut a lot of checks to contractors or checks to Home Depot and things like that. This account might make sense for you because then you're able to write your own checks, and without waiting the processing time of NewView, you would be able to make your investments on a whim. It helps on certain investment strategies. Say you're buying in an auction, a live auction or an online auction. A lot of trustees or auctioneers will require you to make payment at the time of your winning bid, which could be the same day. That doesn't give our office any time to process your investment, so we wouldn't be able to do that investment. But then if you had the checkbook control, you would have a debit card in your back pocket and you would be able to make those investments as you choose at that point. And there's no third-party oversight. So as we mentioned, we always recommend meeting with the CPA or making sure that you know all of the rules and regulations of what you're getting into, because once you move your money over to that LLC, we don't see the investments that are happening with that LLC. So as I mentioned, we won't be able to confirm with our compliance department if it is compliant with the IRS. So make sure that you're cautious, and then make sure that you know what can and can't be paid for out of this account. This account is never to be commingled, so you would never be able to borrow from it and then pay it back, or pay for something outside of the IRA or outside of expenses for the IRA and then pay it back at any point, because that would be then considered prohibited. I don't know if you guys know what happens, but if you are caught doing a prohibited transaction, the IRS will distribute and penalize your account at 50%. So plus the 10% penalty, plus whatever tax bracket that puts you in. So that's losing a lot of money. And nobody wants that. Nobody. So take the self-directed IRA and invest it. Yeah. All right, so for those that are more advanced and those that do want to take this model of self-direction and maybe buy assets that make more sense in an LLC or want quicker access to their funds or more deliberate control, we would recommend this type of account too. And of course, if we have our own charity, Share the Love, and we give to we'll go to other countries and bring wheelchairs and have people go, and it really changes your life. Seeing the smiles on these people's faces when they're able to receive a wheelchair when they went their whole life without being able to have one. So this is always something that we like to speak about. And stay up to date with NewView by liking and subscribing all of our pages on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify for our podcast, and Instagram. Do we have any questions?
So when we're investing outside of the IRA, we'll usually have like one property within each LLC. Is that a strat? I know there's protection at the LLC level and then again at the IRA level, but for those who are overly paranoid about asset protection, do some clients have multiple checkbook LLCs and just hold one property within each LLC?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could set up an LLC for each property if you wanted to do so. You just have to think about the fees that are included or every year, the annual fees.
If you had 2 or 3 checkbook LLCs, so they're all owned by the same beneficiary of the IRA, can funds be transferred from one LLC to the other since they're both?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically you would just move that back to your IRA, which would be here at NewView, since you will have 2 bank accounts set up with those 2 different LLC accounts. You would move the money back to your IRA here at NewView, which at that point, if you ever wanted to move the money there or there, you would just fill out a form and then we would move that money.
So we can use our NewView account as a hub to get funds to each of the different IRAs, just to balance things out after the sale or purchase of the new asset. Okay.
Yeah, at any time.
We do have a couple questions online. The first one is, what are the potential tax benefits of investing through Checkbook Control LLC?
So the tax benefits would be the same tax benefits that are in an IRA, whether it be traditional or Roth, pre-tax or post-tax money. You're just able to have quicker access to your funds at that point, and not have to wait the processing time, and it can be more cost effective, because here at Newview, that LLC that you created is one asset. So that would just be considered one asset with us at Newview.
Great. The next one was, how can I ensure that I am in compliance with all legal and regulatory requirements when using a Checkbook Control LLC?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, we always recommend seeking professional help, meeting with a CPA, financial attorney, somebody who knows about alternative assets, and I know PenServe is a good option to look into. They know all the rules and regulations of the IRS, and they're the company that we go to for questions.
And the last question from online are there any ongoing maintenance or reporting obligations for Checkbook Control LLC?
Yeah, so once a year, you will log on to your Newview portal and update the fair market value of that account and the assets inside of it. If you don't do it by the end of the year, you will be charged a $75 fee.
That's all from online.
Perfect. Wonderful.
How do the fees work for the checkbook IRA versus a traditional one that you're a custodian of? Like, do you still charge by the asset within each of the checkbook IRAs?
No, so when you have a Checkbook Control LLC and that bank account is set up and we don't ever see that, that would be considered one asset with us. So it's inside of it, which you can do. It's still for us. And the only difference is, instead of you having the debit card and direct access to your funds, we would hold the account here. You would fill out a purchase authorization form for anything that you want done or transacted, whether it be for expenses or for the actual investment. Fill out the purchase authorization form, and then 24 to 48 hours later, we would wire out for that investment.
I deal with a lot of trust deeds where the loans are 9 months long, so there's constant churning of these different things.
Mhm.
And in doing it that way, every time I go through, they have to send the money back here, and then I gotta wait for that to get deposited. And I write a check on this stuff and just keep it on my own. What you're saying is that's just one asset as opposed to maybe 4 or 5 different of these trust deeds in there. And the other gentleman was over here talking about multiple LLCs, but once the LLC is owned by the IRA, the safety benefit of the IRA alone supersedes the multiple LLCs. And there's really no reason you can't put all your rentals into one LLC. I mean, rather than get all those multiple fees. Is that right?
That's kind of a different question, because first you have to understand the limited liability protection of the LLC company.
That being the case, but they get into that, they still can't get your money out of the IRA.
Correct.
So I mean, since it's owned by the IRA, it doesn't matter if 1, 10, or 100 of them individual. They can't go after assets within an LLC that is owned by an IRA, period.
Correct.
Especially in Florida.
Correct.
Differing opinions on that.
With lawyers, or somebody told you something silly. I think that would be tough to do.
Do you have a little bit of background as of why? Because I was asking this question this morning to my manager.
So if you're a property owner and, let's say there was a fire in the property and there was a bad panel that you missed and you were actually found to be neglectful, someone could potentially pierce the veil of protection,
But if they were in
It'd be-
separate LLCs, they would be considered separate.
That's my understanding of it. It's still a high hurdle and one most lawyers probably wouldn't want to take on, because they're paid on contingency. So just being in the account's probably enough protection to have someone not take up the suit. But there's a couple of scenarios that have been brought up as possible.
It adds quite a bit of cost to it because you got multiple asset fees with Newview, then of course you got the LLC itself,
Annual fee.
yearly dues and all that. So I mean, it adds up. And again, you sell it as is. And if you got rentals and you haven't lived there, you can easily prove your knowledge of anything that was there if they get a home inspection on sale. But you can say, didn't live there, I had no knowledge of that.
Mm.
So it's, you
As
know,
a
so
landlord, that doesn't really apply.
as a landlord,
Yeah, it doesn't, ignorance of a defect is an applicable under a landlord.
that depends how you sell it too.
But if you're renting it, you still own it.
Well, absolutely, but if you're talking about on a sale there, right?
No, I'm talking about as a landlord.
Or as a landlord,
Yeah,
so if
so-
something happens,
Something happens to a tenant inside my building, that's the concern, not post-sale,
okay,
because at that point, we're gonna disclose everything anyway.
well, of course, anything you know, but yeah. Interesting. It's still protected by the IRA, so that having to go through both of those, it seems to me to be rather difficult. So, my brother also is involved in trustees,
Mhm.
and he has very little money in his, he's just getting started with it. So the fees are overwhelming considering the small amount of money he's working with.
Right.
So, in order for him to get into 2 trustees, the checkbook account would be easier for him or cheaper for him in the long run. So I may have to talk to him about setting that up. I have a bunch of rentals and I've got a bunch of other things. Trying to figure out if I want to let you guys pay my bills or whether I want to actually get involved in it.
Yeah,
Because I have run into problems with moving. And I know that I've gotten fees and fines for late fees,
yeah.
and that you guys are overwhelmed with the amount of money you guys hold here, I know, so. And I'm getting old, so I don't care. All right, so it's just basically, one other question is,
Yeah.
you're talking about getting an LLC, I mean, I can go online and get an LLC, do I have to do something special? Are you talking to get a lawyer involved?
Yeah, so we just need to make sure that it's set up within IRS guidelines, which is why I did provide this form here.
Okay.
That tells you, how we want it to be set up. If you have enough experience that you can set it up on your own, it is an option. We always recommend, CPA or financial advisor to help you establish it. But as long as the IRA is 100% member with you 100% as the manager, should be.
I did have a question about that.
Yeah.
If we set one up for my wife's account, can I be her manager?
Mhm.
Okay, so it's okay for me to manage my wife's IRA?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it okay if I'm the sole manager, or do we need to be both be managers?
I think you guys both would have to be managers, but I can double check with my
She-
manager and confirm that with
She
you.
doesn't want to have to be involved in it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, my wife won't let me touch anything that's hers, so.
She's so annoyed, I'm like, honey, we gotta go sign this document. Can't you do it? No, I can't.
No, I can't.
It's your money, it's your house.
Yeah, I don't see anything special here, it's just a simple IRA, it just needs to be set up, so our LLC, so.
Yeah.
It makes,
Is there something with the documents or with the operating agreement that the lawyer has to get involved with that's like specific?
No.
Okay.
It's just, we always recommend to have it, if you're experienced enough and you know what you're doing enough, you can always set it up yourself.
Okay.
That's why we recommend seeking professional help to make sure that it is set up the way that it's supposed to be.
I understand there are a couple of filing things that you have to do besides the asset value, I guess there's
Correct.
an annual. Is that something I'll help with, or that we get our outside counsel? to
Yeah,
help
you would
with
get
that?
outside counsel at that point,
Okay.
because once it's in that bank account, it's out of our
You're
hands.
just basically moving money back and forth as
Yeah,
needed.
We're
you're talking about the
yeah.
LLC filing?
No, so if you're in control of the checkbook IRA, there's some other annual filing you have to do, not just the net asset value, but there's some other annual filing.
Haven't heard that. I've got a multitude, I max out on fees here, so you're telling me I put everything in a checkbook, one little account, and then I have one account, and I pay one little simple fee.
Mhm.
And then there's no fees for everything I buy and sell within there, so it just eliminates all your money that you make from me. So, I don't know if that's worth it either. Yeah. Interesting, I'll have to look at that one.
Yeah, it does. Just at that point, like as we mentioned, you would be your own record keeper and we would never see that account or be able to make sure that everything that you're doing is within guidelines. But you do have that option.
Yeah.
Good? All right, well, thank you for joining today. Of course, we do this class every Tuesday. Please follow us on our social media and visit our YouTube channel for all of our past classes.